piece of machinery right here. It's been around since 1950. It feels and drives like it's from 1950. I've had it, well, it's been in the family for a long time. I used to belong to a concrete contractor, so I know that it was put away wet, written hard. And then it was owned by a dairy farmer who put this paint on, because originally it was red. But it was owned by a dairy farmer, and me and my mother were at a restaurant, and you know, small towns, you have a bulletin board for your classifieds and what's going on in town. So we were out for a Sunday breakfast, and we were looking at the board, and this thing was for sale. And one of the friends who my mom had brought along said, "You should get that," because we had just moved 5 acres. She's like, "It'd be a farm truck." And she's like, "Well, we can go look at it, why not, you know?" And called them up, and it happened to be a dairy family that we knew. So we ended up going out and saying hi and looking at it and driving it, and she brought it home. No idea how much she paid for it.
Surprised you haven't found that out after all the years you've had it.
I just never asked, yeah. Then, that was about when I was 10. That would have been when I was 10. And then when I turned 13, so 3 years later, my dad offered to rebuild a vehicle with me, which I was very keen to learn automotive because I'd been doing some go-karting before that. They said, you know, we could get you something else, but we have that truck sitting out there. And I was like, heck yeah, let's get that truck. And so from the time I was 13 until about 17, 18, I mean, it's been a constant project. The thing never, you know, when you have, anyone out there who knows that when you have a project, it never stops being a project. You know, there's always something you can do. But there's a lot of things on here that are less than ideal because they were from me learning.
Makes sense.
So like this, for instance, right here is a scratch. Well, I mean, it's bare metal at this point, but this was me, teenager, and I had taken a welding class, and I was like, I know how to take paint off metal. So I started sanding this thing, and like, I think I actually used a wire wheel on it, and that's a big no-no. Don't do that. But as a teenager, I was like, ambitious. I was going to take a paint off every pan. I was just going to be outside every day, just sanding this thing down until it was perfect, and then I was going to spray it myself and save so much money. And that is about how far I got as a teenager before I said, no, that's a stupid idea. I shouldn't do that. And it's been that way ever since. It should be fixed, and we will fix it. But that's one of my goals, is fixing a lot of the stuff that is not perfect. But there's a lot of stuff on it that's not perfect that's kind of cool. Like, you know, the fact that the paint is not super great is the reason I can touch it. And, you know, I don't mind if some guy comes up to it if I'm parked at a gas station and goes like this, you know. And you meet a lot of people. You know, as a teenager, the most people I probably ever met, and I was an introvert, but the most people I probably ever met was on the side of the road with this thing. Because luckily we live in a very nice, you know, well, nice enough area that, you know, you break down on the side of the road in something like this and they'll stop and say hello. So, but, and double check that you're all right. And then if you are like, yeah, I'm all right, I'm just letting it cool down, they'll be like, oh, cool, I had, you know, like this car and all this stuff. And it's cool. Anyway, you got, pick the nose to open the hood. Got a Ford Flathead V8 in it that me and my dad rebuilt. It used to have the inline six, like most of them did back then, but you know, for the education of learning how to build an engine, we rebuilt this thing. And you know, it's not a crazy build. Obviously, it's got stock heads, and it basically has basic pistons and stuff. I mean, it's a flathead. It's not like it's making more than stock power. My dad didn't want me to have anything that could go too fast. He kind of tricked me into that by making me go with the flathead, because I was like, I didn't know anything about engines when I started this thing. I didn't know the numbers of engines. I remember we went somewhere and my dad was talking to someone and he was like, yeah, 289, 350, 427. And I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. Now I do, but back then I didn't know that flatheads didn't make a whole lot of power. But it does make very good noises and very loud.
It does sound really good.
Yeah, it's got true duals, so it doesn't have crossover pipe, nothing like that. Not that it really matters on these because they're so low powered anyway, and the center port of the exhaust is shared between the center two cylinders. It lies in the block and goes up to the exhaust ports. So they are known for being a little bit underpowered and overheating really fast because the exhaust goes through the block and then out through the exhaust header. So they are known for overheating. I can literally watch sometimes the temperature on the needle of the gauge go up and down depending on what I'm doing.
That's funny.
We upgraded to electric fans, upgraded to 12-volt system, so the whole wiring harness is a painless harness because we did not want the thing to burn down. So everything that was safety was done first. So we did brakes first. This is going to be loud. We did brakes first, but they're still the normal, normal for the 1950s drums. So there's drums on the front as well as the rear, because a lot of you out there may know drums from like whatever car you have has rear drums, but back in the 50s that was the technology for all four. So especially on trucks, they may have had them on cars. They probably had them on cars, but for trucks it was, older technology is always the cheaper option, and the cheaper option usually went to the trucks, so the truck got it. Need some mirrors, in here we did new gauges. LMC truck makes repop steering wheel, so we got a nice new steering wheel. The seat is hilarious. All right, take a look at the seat here. Now, comment below what this came out of. If you grew up in the 90s, you know. You rode in one of these. You sat in one of these. But anyway, my mom told me very explicitly that I had to have seat belts before I could drive this thing to school. And I didn't want to go drilling into this thing and doing all kinds of stuff, and we just happen to have this seat laying around. So, seat belts integrated into the seat. And if I go to the other side, you can stay here. It flips forward. So it's actually basically a truck seat. Just not from a truck.
That works well.
It works really well. Oh my god, the glove box is gone. There is no glove box.
That's currently where you keep all your papers.
Yeah. So this is
Speeding
another
tickets.
one. Yeah, speeding tickets. Whoop, right
Parking fines.
Right outside. So I did take this to high school. This thing has been sitting, I should mention. This thing has been sitting for, well, the last registration expired in 2016, and I know I didn't really drive it much after about 2012 is when I moved away, so probably about 2012. So this thing is one of those things that's been sitting for a long time. I threw a new carburetor on it recently because the old one, the accelerator pump, was busted up and stuff like that. But so now she's running a lot better. But this is another one of those things that I did in high school. I painted this flat satin black because I thought I was going to paint the whole truck satin black. I thought rat rods were the coolest thing ever. And now I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Ashtray, I think is cool. It's got my tassel from high school on it because I drove this to graduation. That was one of my things, was I wanted to drive this to my high school graduation, and I got to do it. But yeah, there's no headliner in it currently. I just sprayed it with some, bed liner from O'Reilly's or wherever, you know, whatever your favorite parts store is. And a bolt just fell out, or a nut. So, you know, that's good. It's always giving, this truck. It's always giving me things, and, you know, I'm thankful for it. Let's see. Obviously, there's nothing here right now, but these kind of disintegrated because these were the original 1950 covers.
Is that a radio?
So there was an optional radio here, and you had a single speaker in this hole right here.
Wow.
The one that I got, or the original, did not have a radio. There's like a plate that goes over here, and it's made of like Bakelite plastic, and it says Ford on it. And then this is literally just the same throughout all the models, but it has like, well, you'll see it. We're gonna put one in there, so you'll see it eventually. But we're gonna put a stereo or something and put some covers over here. If nothing else, we're just gonna put covers on there, but we'll get to that. Because this thing's gonna be an ongoing build series. As I say, projects never end. But over here, low car shifter. This is behind the flathead. Me and my family always went back to Wisconsin, and on the way to Wisconsin is Lincoln, Nebraska, which is where Speedway Motors is. So I got to basically save on shipping and never pay for shipping for big parts like this. And because of that, I scrimped and saved enough money to buy a C4 transmission conversion for this thing, which, you know, I wanted an auto back then because I was kind of stupid, but I didn't think, my experience with driving a manual was driving a 1977 J10 which I was actually pretty good at, and then in here was the old crash box behind the 6-cylinder, which had no synchronizers, so you had to get the engine exactly right or double clutch, and it was beyond me at the age of 13. I love the setup in the sense that it's loud, and it's not that it's reliable, but it's not unreliable. You know what I mean? You can come out, turn a couple knobs, make sure that it's fueled right, and it'll run. So, like any old car, you put fuel, air, spark to it, and it'll run. Electric windshield wipers, we put those in. That's pretty cool. Because the old ones were vacuum operated, and when you needed them most, like if you were going to pass someone in the rain, they would stop working. Moving on. Let's see. Bed used to have a metal sheet on it here. I got ambitious one time and took it off, and I was like, I'm gonna make a really nice wood bed. And I got it off, and I was like, well, this is really rusty. And you can see there's some more high school stuff. I started taking the rust and the paint off on the tailgate here. And I was like, I'm gonna make it look nice. And then I was overly ambitious for the amount of time that I had as a teenager and patience. But I have a new wood bed. It's gonna be something we'll do. But we did put a fuel cell down here, me and my dad, because my parents didn't want me driving around in the truck with the fuel cell inside the cab, because normally it's behind the seat in these trucks. So we moved it back here. This is a kit. It actually came for a 1950 Ford, and it fits perfectly up in there. And then your new fuel cap is back here. They had a version that would come out the side and come out here, but you had to cut the fenders, and we just decided it was too much work, and this works out great. Put a Ford 9-inch in the rear, so it's got the ability to take a much bigger engine, which was kind of my dad's goal apparently, and my goal, because he was kind of the build master, because he knew a lot more than I did, obviously. So he recommended a Ford 9-inch, and actually the Ford 9-inch that's in here is out of like a 1975 F, I think it's a 150, may have been a 250. Anyway, it's out of one of them. And the crazy part about it, we did enough research that we literally pulled the axle and it bolted up. The same spring perches. Didn't have to modify it at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was the only thing we had to do was obviously a drive shaft because C4 transmission to it's a weird application, but it was not hard. We just measured it, and there was a guy, a local guy, who just made the drive shaft and was like, "Here you go," and it's been working great ever since. Come to think of it, that was 15 years ago, so whew, it's been working for a while. But you can see the bed's been very beat up, used, you could say. But you can see this is a farm paint job. You know, this is basically just overspray on here, and you know, whoever did the paint job, well, I know who did the paint job, but it was literally done in a barn. But so if you get in real close, it looks really good from 15 feet away. Actually, 30 feet, real pristine.
Good 30-footer.
Yeah, good 30-footer. We put new bumpers on it because the old bumpers were farm bumpers where they had, you know, taken pieces of metal and basically cut holes in them and then welded them all together with an arc welder. But yeah, other than that, I think that's where the truck is at. There's a lot that we're gonna do to it. And it's kind of at one of those crossroads. I've always had a crossroads with this truck where I know I'm never gonna get rid of it because it's so sentimental to me. So do I keep it with, you know, all its little nicks and bumps and bruises that add character? And like this tailgate, you know, like this tailgate, you can tell it's just had from concrete people and farm hands and everything, all the boards and materials and tools that have laid on top of this have, you know, molded it to be what it is. And so do I change it out or do I leave it with some character? I've yet to decide. It's kind of been at this state for a long time because I've never been able to decide. Because if I go and I put I could have someone put a paint job on it and do it up real right, but then you can't lean on it, you know? You can't, it's not the fun truck it used to be. It's then a show truck. Or do I keep this and maybe respray it myself with my buddy over there, you know? The goal right now is to get it reliable. So I have some parts to get it more reliable, like the brake master cylinder on this thing only has a single piston. So if any of the brake lines decide they don't want to be a brake line anymore, then the whole braking system fails. Automotive, you have two pistons, so if the fronts go out, then the backs still work. So, or vice versa, if the back goes out, the front still works. And so I have stuff like that. I have a new master cylinder to change out and stuff like that. Because safety is important.
Safety third.
Safety third. Obviously, you know, it's got some pretty light suspension. It's got 3-inch drop on it because.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's been dropped 3 inches because, and we actually weren't going to do that when I first got it, but I was underneath it and I was like, Dad, is this supposed to be like this? And one of the springs was busted. So like literally cracked.
Oh my gosh.
So it was only held on by the overloads. And he was like, yeah, we're going to change that?
That's crazy.
So, you know, it's not like we were going to go to the junkyard and find springs. So new springs for this thing back then were not super expensive. So we got some basically mono-leaf springs. So they're real smooth. It's actually a really smooth riding truck. You can see how much compliance the thing has just from me using half of my weight. Like, she rides real well, but it's always been kind of a dream to put the thing on air and, you know, just be able to lay the thing out, put like a little bit faster engine in it, you know?
Enough to keep up with traffic.
Yeah, exactly. Something for modern times. Be able to drive it without worrying about it, you know, hydro locking or overheating. What do you think? Tell me. What should I do? Do I make it a show truck? Do I keep it characterized? Even if I do make it a show truck, I'm still going to use it like a truck, you know, because trucks are trucks. If this thing just sat around in a shop like this and never got touched, that's cool, but that's a museum piece, you know? That's not me. I drive stuff. So, comment, tell me, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye. Statistics are like a bikini. What they show is interesting, but what they hide is vital.